Good morning, everybody. This is Yin Yang with Morsels of a Thought number 1164. It is Sunday. I'm trying to get us onto the tripod without dropping everything. Yay, 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 yay. Hold on a second while I get up here. Okay, we're here. Oh, my goodness. Okay, and then I nearly dropped everything just a while ago. That's okay. It's here now. Okay. So today we are reading Our Town. We are on our penultimate installment, and it is 4 5:10 a.m. Where's the book? It's over there. Okay, hold on a second while I go get the book. It's way over there actually, so let me be careful not to knock over the entire tripod. And here we are. Okay, I still managed to be 1 minute late. I'm sorry. And it is currently daylight saving, Pacific daylight saving time. California Pacific time, 5:10 a.m. Now it is 5:13. Oh gosh. Okay, so we're reading Thornton Wilder, Our Town. This is the three plays version. I'm going to bring this book to San Diego with me in 2 weeks, so just in case. But I think I will be home. Excuse me while I rub my nose. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh. And I did my nasal inhalant thing. Anyway, okay, so we are in Act 3. We are sitting on stage. There are chairs on the stage, and there are rows and columns of chairs. There are 3 rows of chairs. There are people sitting in the chairs, and they represent the people who have passed on in Grover's Corners. It's a little ways from the town. It's on a hill, a windy hill, and so the stage manager he's been saying for a long time, gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Something is eternal. That something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. Pause. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. I'm going to pause for a second to mention that I used to say that part of me was part of a dinosaur's tail. The reason I said this is that all the atoms and molecules and the protons and neutrons and electrons on the Earth have been pretty much the same ones that have been here since the Earth started. And so all of our composing elements are old. But we are young and new forms of what's there. So we are all made of matter. And I've often said to myself, hey, what if I used to be part of a dinosaur's tail? Yes, I used to say that. I don't know why, but I used to say that. Anyway, that was me. This is Yin Yang with Morsels of a Thought, number 1164. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from Earth. That's the way I put it. This is the stage manager talking. Weaned away. And they stay here while the Earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part of them to come out clear? Some of the things they're going to say maybe will hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone and your identity, and what's left when memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? He looks at the audience a minute, then turns to the stage. Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here comes a Grover's Corners boy that left town to go out west. Joe Stoddard has hovered about in the background. Sam Craig enters left, wiping his forehead from the exertion. He carries an umbrella and strolls front. Sam Craig. Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard. Joe Stoddard. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you? Sam Craig. I'm Sam Craig. Joe Stoddard. Gracious sakes alive, of all people, I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam. Sam Craig. Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well. Joe Stoddard. Yes, yes, can't complain. Very sad, our journey today, Samuel. Sam Craig. Yes. Joe Stoddard. Yes, yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home. Sam Craig, reading Stones. Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago. Joe Stoddard. Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now. Sam Craig, staring at Mrs. Gibbs's knees. Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course, of course. Joe Stoddard. Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago about this time, and today's another pretty bad blow for him, too. Mrs. Gibbs, to Simon Stimson, in an even voice. That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam. Sam Craig. Simon Stimson. I'm always uncomfortable when they're around. Mrs. Gibbs. Simon. Sam Craig. Do they choose their own verses much, Joe? Joe Stoddard. No, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse. Sam Craig. Doesn't sound like Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hershey sisters left now. Let's see. I wanted to look at my father's and mother's. Joe Stoddard. Over there with the Craigs. Avenue F. Sam Craig. Reading Simon Stimson's epitaph. He was the organist at church, wasn't he? Him. Drank a lot, we used to say. Joe Stoddard. Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble behind his hand. Took his own life, you know. Sam Craig. Oh, did he? Joe Stoddard. Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it there. It ain't a verse exactly. Sam Craig. Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it? Joe Stoddard. Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time. Sam Craig. Joe, what did she die of? Joe Stoddard. Who? Sam Craig. My cousin. Joe Stoddard. Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old. Sam Craig, opening his umbrella. The grave's going to be over there? Joe Stoddard. Yes, there ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. You'll excuse me now, I see they're coming. From left to center at the back of the stage comes a procession. Four men carry a casket, invisible to us. All the rest are under umbrellas. One can vaguely see Dr. Gibbs, George, the Webbs, etc. They gather about a grave in the back center of the stage, a little to the left of center. Mrs. Soames. Who is it, Julia? Mrs. Gibbs, without raising her eyes. My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb. Mrs. Soames, a little surprised, but no emotion. Well, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia? Mrs. Gibbs, in childbirth. Mrs. Soames, childbirth, almost with a laugh. I'd forgotten all about that. My life, wasn't life awful? With a sigh. And wonderful. Simon Stimson, with a sideways glance. Wonderful, was it? Mrs. Gibbs. Simon, now remember. Mrs. Soames. I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm. A woman from among the dead. It's the same road we lived on. A man among the dead. Yep, right smart farm. They subside. The group by the grave starts singing, Blessed be the tie that binds. A woman among the dead. I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn. Pause. Suddenly, Emily appears from among the umbrellas. She is wearing a white dress. Her hair is down her back and tied by a white ribbon like a little girl. She comes slowly, gazing wonderingly at the dead, a little dazed. She stops halfway and smiles faintly. After looking at the mourners for a moment, she walks slowly to the vacant chair beside Mrs. Gibbs and sits down. Emily. To them all, quietly, smiling. Hello. Mrs. Soames. Hello, Emily. A man among the dead. Hello, Miss Gibbs. Emily. Warmly. Hello, Mother Gibbs. Mrs. Gibbs. Emily. Emily. Hello, with surprise. It's raining! Her eyes drift back to the funeral company. Mrs. Gibbs. Yes, they'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself. Emily. It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson? Simon Stimson. How do you do, Emily? Emily continues to look about her with a wondering smile, as though to shut out from her mind the thought of the funeral company. She starts speaking to Mrs. Gibbs with a touch of nervousness. Emily. Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and a great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us. Mrs. Gibbs. I did? Emily. Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs, the legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350. Mrs. Gibbs. Yes, Emily. Emily. Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. Her voice trails off and her eyes return to the funeral group. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Suddenly she looks directly at Mrs. Gibbs. Live people don't understand, do they? Mrs. Gibbs. No, dear, not very much. Emily. They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. She sees Mr. Carter among the dead. Oh, Mr. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house. Mr. Carter, is he? Emily, yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive, though, Mother Gibbs. When does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does it, Mrs. Gibbs? Shh, dear, just wait and be patient. Emily, with a sigh. I know. Look, they're finished. They're going. Mrs. Gibbs. Shh. The umbrellas leave the stage. Dr. Gibbs has come over to his wife's grave and stands before it a moment. Emily looks up at his face. Mrs. Gibbs does not raise her eyes. Emily. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he, Mother Gibbs? Oh, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark life persons are. Look at him. I loved him so from morning till night. That's all they are. Troubled. Dr. Gibbs goes off. The dead. Little cooler than it was. Yes, that rain's cooled off a little. Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If it isn't a rain, it's a 3-day blow. The patient calm falls on the stage. The stage manager appears at his proscenium pillar, smoking. Emily sits up abruptly with an idea. Emily, but Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I feel it. I know it. Why why then just for a moment I was thinking about the farm, and for a minute I was there, and my baby was on my lap as plain as day. Mrs. Gibbs, yes, of course you can. Emily, I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not? Mrs. Gibbs, all I can say is, Emily, don't. Emily, she appeals urgently to the stage manager. But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again. Stage manager, yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here. Mrs. Gibbs, don't do it, Emily. Mrs. Soames, Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be. Emily, but I won't live over a sad day. I'd choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful? They are silent. Her question turns to the stage manager. Stage manager, you not only live it, but you watch yourself living it. Emily, yes? Stage manager, and as you watch it, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards. Okay, so we are, okay, we'll do that. Oh, hold on, we'll go over one more page. Emily, but is that painful? Why? Mrs. Gibbs, that's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand. Emily, softly. But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had. Mrs. Soames, oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't. Emily, but it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway. Mrs. Gibbs, no. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough. Emily to herself, then it can't be since I was married or since the baby was born. To the stage manager eagerly, I can choose a birthday at least, can I? I can choose my 12th birthday. Stage manager, all right, February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day? Emily, oh, I want the whole day. Stage manager, we'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they had begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up. Emily, with a cry, rising. There's Main Street. Why, that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable. The stage at no time in this act has been very dark, but now the left half of the stage gradually becomes, wait a minute. The stage at no time in this act has been very dark. At no time. The stage at no time in this act has been very dark, but now the left half of the stage gradually becomes very bright, the brightness of a crisp winter morning. Emily walks toward Main Street. Stage manager. Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago. Emily. Oh, that's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I'd forgotten that. Oh, I love it so. Are they inside? Stage manager. Yes, your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast. Okay, so we'll start here next week. We are going to read the last installment of Our Town on the, I think it's the 16th. Let me see, is that the 16th? No, the 17th of March, which will be St. Patrick's Day. Yay. So today was the Sunday series. We're still doing Our Town. We have one more installment left. Then after that, we plan on another book. I plan to bring a book to San Diego. And if I get stuck down there, I'll be starting from that book. Otherwise, we'll come here and start on Grass Soup. So we will talk to you later. See you tomorrow. Okay, old Kinderhook.